Happy Wednesday evening. It is the Skeleton Crew here. It is SEC After Dark. Welcome in. It is the greatest night of the week. It is Thursday night. We're on the precipice of the weekend. If you're in Nashville or somewhere in the Mid-South, you probably got a load of snow on Tuesday night coming into Wednesday. I've been off school the last 2 days.
Got it. Yeah.
Jake, did you guys get any snow down there?
Hey guys, sorry I'm running late, but yeah, we got about an inch. I wasn't able to get out of work or anything. I didn't get on the roads too bad, but the yard's still got spots here and there.
Yep. Yeah, we got about 2.5, 3, and enough to knock us out of school for 2 days, but nothing significant.
Nice.
Because they don't want to like drive the buses on these back roads where it's untreated, but all the main roads were completely dry by noon on Wednesday, so it was, it's crazy. So anyway,
at the college here we've been in, but Huntington Public Schools. Today was their first day this week. They had school.
Wow.
Oh dang! How many? What was the snowfall totals up there?
Oh, 3-4 inches, but there's also a ton of people outside the city that are very rural roads, tough to get on, so buses aren't going to make it back there in this weather.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's Mike Huseman, also Boss Man, and Jake joining me on the Skeleton Crew. Steve and Jeb are out, and I guess Hammer is he's out hitting the slopes maybe. So anyway, well, this episode is brought to you by the Steer Agency. There's only two things that come from Texas: steers and, well, the rest.
Easy.
Football is all about strategy. It's just like winning in business, whether you're dialing up the perfect play on Saturdays or looking to dominate in public affairs, PR, or digital marketing. You need a team that delivers results. That's where the Steer Agency comes in. They craft winning strategies that get you seen, heard, and ahead of the competition. So don't just play the game, man. Control it. So visit steeragency.com today. Take your brand to the next level. Just like After Dark, we're taking our brand to the next level. So be on the lookout for that. We've got a lot of great things. Mike Huseman is in the works. He joins us tonight. He's in the works with the show concept. Jake, Bama After Dark, perhaps, and then Boss Man and Hammer are the Biscuits and SEC crew. They've already been going live, so they're a fixture on this channel now. Jake?
Well, I will say I made a move in the positive direction on Bama After Dark. I have created a Bama After Dark Instagram page, so it's a start.
You know what they say about Instagram? If you start an Instagram page, then it's for real.
Yeah,
it's going to happen, right?
Yeah, I'm going to get there, but yeah, I will say that yes, I will probably start this summer, some point, start doing that.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm taking the week off my birthday of April the 14th that week, so I might be able to get some things lined up and worked out then. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's as much fact as if there's another rule in this show. If we all agree, it's fact.
Yeah, right.
Right. If we all agree, it's fact. So, but we got an action-packed show. Ross Dellinger dropped a bombshell on Yahoo. The SEC and Big Ten are talking a little playoff expansion. It's going to be a move that I think is going to send shockwaves through all of college football, and it's going to make it. I mean, the players might not like it because it's going to be a freaking gauntlet for the SEC and the Big Ten, but for the fans and for the product, it's going to be amazing. Fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. So here's kind of some of the highlights, and then I'll leave it to you guys for your opinions on it. But they're going to a 14 or 16 team playoff, which I think they'll settle on 16. I think they'll go high on that. 4 auto bids for the Big Ten, 4 auto bids for the SEC, 2 for the ACC, 2 for the Big 12, 1 for the highest rated Group of 5 champion, and then 3 at large, leaving 1 reserved for Notre Dame if they are qualifiers that year. So, welcome, Hammer. How are the slopes tonight?
What's up? They're good.
They're good.
Sorry, I'm a little late, but I'm here and I'm on a laptop, so things are looking up.
Hey, okay.
Hey, look at you.
All right, they found internet out there where you're at. So that's
found internet. Yep.
All right. You had to probably ski to the bottom of the mountain to get it, right?
Exactly.
That's good. So
it's too high up, too far in the Alpine.
Well, we're talking about this Ross Dellinger article here. The SEC would likely go to 9-game conference schedule. There's going to be an SEC Big Ten Challenge out there, so you play a Big Ten team. So if you're looking forward for that Vandy Northwestern matchup, then it's the place for you. Or that Rutgers Mississippi State game that everyone's been chomping at the bit for.
Yeah.
That's going to be a thing. And then no conference championship, and likely would be like they would switch the format to, instead of crowning an SEC champion, whoever finishes as the top seed will be the SEC champion. It would just kind of be like 3, 4, 5, and 6 would play for those last 2 spots. So I just fire hosed you guys. I think I just fed you with a fire hose a little bit. Apologies, but what are our thoughts on that format? I'm kind of a fan of it.
I like parts of it and I hate parts of it. I mean, there's a lot to unpack with what you just talked about there.
All right, where do we start?
Where do we start?
Let's start with the 16-team playoff. Let's start there. What are our thoughts on that? Expanding the field.
I can start. I don't want to expand from where we are now, to be honest with you. I would frankly go down. If I was the commissioner right now, I would say let's go to 8. That would be not my number. So I understand TV deals. We got money involved, and the money is only growing. And these schools all obviously want a bigger piece of the pie. But I'm just look. We've only had 1 year. What year did they say? I'm not totally read in on this.
After 2025, it doesn't have to be a unanimous deal. So, I mean, they could do it as easy as quickly as season after next.
Right. Yeah. Which was the idea of when it would be. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Because the contract's up after this season. It was a 2-year deal on the 12 team.
Look, I'm never going to hate more football, right? More football is going to be great. It'll be fun. I'm going to be right there with everybody watching it if and when it probably does go to 16 teams. But from a purity standpoint, and I also think that we're going to get even more blowouts, right, from going to 16 teams. And I don't think that anybody really wants to see that at the end of the day. So if it was me, I would go less. But I know the wheels of history are turning, and we're going to go to 16 no matter what I think.
Yeah, Mike. Or
the going to 16, for me, I don't even know that it's worth talking about. It's going to happen. Whether we go to 14 first or jump right to 16, I think that in itself is an inevitability. Just looking at more teams, more money, more TV viewers. So the one thing, if we go to 16, I don't like the idea of 4 auto bids for the Big Ten and SEC. I think it's too many. I'll be the first to say that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Hammer.
I guess, I mean, similar to Mike, what you were saying, I think the 16 is inevitable. I'm not a big fan of it either. However, you can't, it's too much money. You're not going to stop it. My question would be, okay, so you go to 16 and in the perceived, future, as you just mentioned, Mike, there's 4 from Big Ten and SEC. I want to know, like, how, I guess, if those are all automatic qualifiers, is there a committee? Like, I'm interested in the how, right? So not just how are we selecting teams, what is the criteria for the 4 in the SEC and Big Ten, and then perceived 2 in the Big 12 and ACC? How is that determined? And then even within the playoff structure, I feel like we saw this year, especially with the national title game being so late in January, it kind of got swallowed up by the NFL. So if you're going to expand it even further, are we going into February? Like, when is this going to get wrapped up? Because I think college football is better to get out of the way of the NFL and finish their season earlier. So I don't know if that means they move up the start of the season, if they start playing games, earlier in December, but I'm very curious how all that will get worked out, because I don't like the idea of going up against, NFC and AFC championships, divisional rounds of the NFL. And to your point, Mike, I mean, I think the argument could be made that 4 is too many. And again, I'm interested to see like what is that criteria? Do you send like this year? Do you send Georgia and Texas to Atlanta as the 1 and 2 seeds, or do they not even play the SEC championship because they are 1 and 2, and then you have
they would do the other, like, let's say hypothetically the other 4 that are 3 through 6, like Alabama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, and
Tennessee would have been.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Tennessee. So those 4 teams, seed them however,
Yeah.
hypothetically, however you want to seed them, they would match up against each other. And probably, I don't know if you do it at one venue and just play 2 games at one venue, jamboree style. I don't know if you just go like the higher seed hosts or however you want to do that.
For money wise, I would be surprised if they didn't have it high seed host. That would be a bonanza for the school that was hosting that game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, if they're going to do that, that's what they should do. But
Yeah.
for like the 16 teams, like the way the FCS does it, I think they, this seems kind of counterintuitive, but like, I think if you're going to expand your field, I think you ought to go down into the FCS, whoever runs that playoff, and go, okay, how do you do it? Because they get all of their games in before December, and then they play their championship right at the first part of January.
They
like
do
right
24 and 8 teams have a bye.
Yeah. And I don't know. I'm not saying go to the 24 format, but like you can get those amount of games in. You can't have these big long breaks. Like you got to, it's almost right after the season.
FCS round 1 conference title week for FBS.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. So instead of conference titles, I think you would back up the season like 1 or 2 weeks in August, go before the NFL, and maybe have your 3rd game on Labor Day, and then like structure your schedule to where you can play your play-in games on like Thanksgiving weekend and then roll right into the playoffs.
Week 0 becomes week 1 or 2 in that case.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I think you go as far as if you're going to play 12 games, what's traditionally week 0 now becomes week 2, and week 1 goes before that. Like I think to be able to get all your play-in games, all your seeding games, and all your whatever games, I think you have to bump it back like 2 weeks.
Another one. Everyone has 2 buys this year. Does that go down to just 1 if we're going to go that early? It's tough to start that early and get 2 buys in. I don't know how that would work.
Yeah. I don't know how that works either. They would have to do some serious.
You're pretty much getting rid of fall camp and just going straight into football season. You're having summer camp at that point.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Pretty much.
I'm interested too. Again, so
it's going to be like the NFL. Start training camp mid-July and roll into the season.
And I feel like we touched on this at times, throughout the season, even with the 12 team and just how the committee handled it. But again, if you're giving out 4 auto bids to the 2 big leagues solely based on where they finish within the conference, I know there was talk in this proposal in the Dellinger article of a sort of scheduling alliance between the SEC and Big Ten, which would be fun, of course. But I'm very interested to see, again, just how do you fit all these games in? Do you shave? Okay, so you go to 9 conference games, then do you shave and only have 2 out of conference games, or like, because there's, other than, I guess, TV revenue and a contractual obligation to play a big out of conference game, none of these schools are going to schedule one unless they're forced into it. So
which I think that's what college football, or at least the power of the FBS is going to kind of force into it. Like they're going to try to get rid of those FCS games, which sucks for the FCS schools, but they're going to try to get rid of that and force you to play those big matchups. Maybe
Big Ten has been on a push for a few years to do that. That's been a big Barry Alvarez thing, is get rid of Big Ten teams playing FCS games.
And
Corey, you mentioned it, but it really is becoming the NFL where you're going to be mandated to play, your out of conference games, and then your in conference games is what's going to determine whether you get to the playoffs, right? In the NFL, you can go 7 and I guess 8 and 9 nowadays with the schedule. But if you win your division, you go to the playoffs. It'll be the same thing. You could go 0-2 or 0-4 and you're out of conference, but then finish in the top 4 of your league and get in, which I don't love that idea. I'll be honest with you. I don't love that idea.
I don't like it either because, like you said, in the NFL, you play all the division teams. In college, Indiana avoided a lot of the other good Big Ten teams last year, and they would have been the 3rd team in the Big Ten.
Yeah,
right.
Great point. Yep.
Yeah, and it's they're going to have to figure out ways to get around that. I don't know if you can't really sever the Big Ten back to like eliminating a couple teams back to different conferences to even down your playing fields. But it's going to be tough to figure out how do you match up and how do you play a fair schedule each year, because there's some years where Ohio State or Michigan or whoever gets that really really easy schedule because the Big Ten is very top heavy, and then there's some years where like SEC teams will get they'll get the luck of the draw of getting Mississippi State and Arkansas in a down year or whoever, and as their crossover games. But it just comes down to trying to figure out the schedule math and all that stuff. And how do you figure out your non-conference? Like, well, there's that scheduling alliance now. So like, what game does that knock out? Like, do you have two power? Do you have 2 P4 games and a G5 game? Like, how do you do that? And then I guess the FCS are going to have to get the revenue generators from their group of 5, and not the power conferences anymore.
Does the SEC still get their week game, the glorified scrimmage game the week before rivalry week? I mean, you probably have to do away with that too, and the FCS teams won't like that.
Yeah, that's probably what you're going with. But they're just like the FCS teams are just, instead of playing Alabama, they're just going to have to play Arkansas State, or they're going to have to play MTSU or Kent State, or
I'll be right back, Corey.
all right, or whoever. Like, they're going to just have to, it's going to be a ripple effect in that regard. So it's going to be kind of wild how that works out. So it's definitely something that they have to kind of figure out and work out, and all that stuff. So it's going to be interesting. But
this to me, going back to your point, Mike, this is stepping probably really far ahead here, but this is what I've been thinking it's going. And I think, I'm probably not the only one that's thinking this, is that, like you were talking about with Indiana in the Big Ten last year, if we're going to this model, right, Indiana avoided so many of the better teams in the Big Ten this year. Well, I think that we are headed towards the super conferences, right? Big Ten and SEC, and we're essentially going to split into the AFC and the NFC.
That's where we're headed, and
you're going to have divisions.
If it gets to that, then it'll be a little bit cleaner as far as you'll have 8 and 8, and then they'll just meet in the middle.
And I don't want college football to become the NFL. I like college football for the uniqueness of college football, and I'm more of a college football fan than I am an NFL fan. However, it would make it cleaner, like you said, and it seems inevitable that eventually that's where we get.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking all the way down, Mike, to the structure of the off season. Like, your spring practice is going to go away; it's going to be replaced by mini camps. The whole recruiting process. It's going to be. I think eventually they're going to, down the road, they're going to work to clean up the schedule as far as off season goes, like recruiting, transfer portal things, and you're going to have certain windows that you can work in, and that's going to be a little bit smoother, cleaner, probably a little bit more organized, so that the sport just doesn't get completely off the rails. Like it's heading there right now, because they want to be the NFL, but they're not quite there yet. There's a lot of kinks to work out in the portal with NIL, with playoff expansion, and realignment of leagues, and all that good stuff.
I think another aspect of this topic will be Notre Dame is a power player at the voting level of college football. They will like this plan because it gives them a path to a bye. They could be one of the top 4 teams and get a bye. Under the current system, that's not possible. So I feel like getting them on board won't be as difficult, especially if they can show their games still on their own TV network.
Yeah,
that's true. I wonder what their schedule would end up looking like in this sort of format, because
Do they still play the 5 ACC teams? It might not help them to do that.
Right.
Yeah, they've got to make a decision on like, hey, are we going to be half in the ACC for football, or like they've got to kind of make a decision. Like I think at some point they've got to just join a conference and they'll go Big Ten eventually.
I don't know that they have to, but it'll be interesting. Their schedule next year is very weird because it's really tough right away. Then they got a bunch of weak games. Then it ends decently tough too. Like I think they have A&M week 1 or 2 next year. Early,
yeah, in South Bend.
I think Miami, Texas A&M are their opening 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Carson Beck.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Then they got Purdue and Boise after that. I think.
Yeah.
Oh, they're playing Boise. That's fun.
Yeah.
That is fun.
That is actually a good fun matchup.
Hopefully Carson Beck can make it up to South Bend. I don't know if y'all saw the news, but he got robbed and doesn't have his Lamborghini and whatever the other car he was driving.
Yeah.
Poor guy can't catch a break, can he? Yeah, they're
His
playing.
girlfriend can't even give him a ride because her car got stolen too.
They found hers. They didn't find either of his.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
They found her Hyundai and they didn't find his Lamborghini.
Yeah.
Shocker.
Yeah.
Shocker.
That thing's probably in 100 pieces by now.
Yeah, true.
I would think so.
Or it's on a shipping container going to somewhere overseas.
Yeah.
Like Gone in 60 Seconds style. So their schedule is actually kind of cake. Like they get Purdue. Their SEC team is Arkansas, who don't know anything about what Arkansas is going to do. I don't think Arkansas knows what Arkansas is going to be. NC State, which
they have to be better than they were last year. Doran's been a consistent coach, but they were awful last year.
They're just decent. Like they're always NC State's weird because they're always they play you tough, but they just fizzle. Boston College, that's going to be an interesting game. USC is soft. Navy, that'll be an interesting game. Navy's actually pretty good now. Pitt, Syracuse, that game became much tougher. And then Stanford, that game became a lot easier. I don't think Stanford is the same Stanford as they always are, unless y'all know something I don't.
If you look at like Power conference teams since COVID, Stanford's like by far the worst. They've only won like 7 games, 8 in the last couple of years. Yeah.
Awful. But Fran Brown is not going to be long for Syracuse unless he wants to stay there, because he's going to get an upgrade somewhere. That dude can coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would imagine McCall, this will be his last year. So the timing would line up for him to capitalize if they have a good year to get out while the getting's good after McCall goes to the NFL. Yeah.
And I think he will. I think he'll have an opportunity to go somewhere. It'll probably be in the SEC. It'll probably somebody. Who do we think is going to go in the SEC first?
Pittman.
Yeah. They're going to send him out with a gold watch. And
has to be. Yeah. Though I've been harping this to a lot of people, but Billy Napier could be. He could be this year's Neil Brown, who was on the hot seat, saved himself, got fired the next year. Billy's winning 7 games didn't buy long-term stability. It saved him for an off season.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it helps that he has DJ Lagway, so he actually does have a chance.
He does.
I'm curious as to like where Mark Stoops and Kentucky stand, because that whole thing of him flirting with Texas A&M,
mm-hmm.
and then the and the visceral reaction that the fans had, Hammer and Boss Man. You guys were probably more in tune with that than even I was, but like they had a Greg Schiano to Tennessee type reaction.
Yeah,
and Kentucky had to have seen that, right? Like they had to have been like, oh, well, okay. And then he goes, then he hits a 4-8.
Yeah.
And I remember we talked about this on the show throughout the season, but it wasn't just they went 4-8. Like he was just saying weird stuff in press conferences. I mean, after that Vanderbilt game, I remember he brought up, like NIL, as if Vanderbilt is outspending Kentucky. And
They might be, actually. I mean,
And
Vanderbilt has some NIL potential.
Do we think Kentucky's going to be any better with Zach Calzada at QB this year? I don't.
No, they're going to be.
I would be shocked.
And losing Dane Key and Barry and Brown
Yeah.
to the portal. Like,
And replacing it with seemingly
Yeah.
nothing.
What'll be interesting to me is after this year, if 70-year-old Kirk Ferentz retires at Iowa, if Stoops goes back to the alma mater, and it might be a move both sides just want to happen at this point. Hey, we love you, Mark. You're the best coach we've ever had, but we won't charge you a buyout if you take off.
Right.
Could happen.
It's just time. Like it is. It's just time. He's been great there. I've enjoyed watching his teams. They're always tough physically, and they've always kind of had that identity. But he's just done. I think he's done with Kentucky. Kentucky's kind of done with him. I think his message is just falling on deaf ears at this point. They just need a refresh.
And provided Tulane doesn't fall on their face, Summerall's a ready-made guy to go to Kentucky.
That would be an amazing hire. And I don't think Tulane's going to fall. I think they're going to fall down a little bit because, like at the G5 level, it's tough to sustain those long periods of success because your rosters change so drastically.
Yeah. And
they lost Mensah to Duke at QB, but they do have TJ Finley at his fifth college and Caden Simonza from Ball State, who was actually okay.
He will be good. And I think with G5 coaches, I think looking at records is a little bit dangerous.
It is.
You just got to kind of look at the whole structure of the thing. Like, are they competitive? Wins and losses at the G5 level are about as useless of a metric as you can get when judging a coach, because like it goes well beyond that. The whole like gymnastics you have to do to construct your roster and to, keep people from picking your roster apart through the transfer portal is just, I don't envy.
And looking at non-con games means nothing because most of them just get their asses kicked 2 games to get paychecks.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Another SEC job that I think is likely to open up is Oklahoma. I feel like that's another program that I guess I can't remember the kid's name, but the Washington State Mateer.
John Mateer.
I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback, but
when his old coordinator went there first, Arbuckle went to Oklahoma, and then Mateer followed him.
Here's what's going to happen in Oklahoma. They're going to be electric on offense, but they ain't going to be able to stop anybody, and they're going to be a roller coaster. They're going to be kind of inconsistent.
They got to get that offensive line short up, though. That's, you can be a great offensive coordinator if you can't block like they couldn't this year. I don't know. And even then, with Venables, Mike, you brought it up with Napier, right? Like, hey, winning 7 games was an improvement and saved his job for an offseason. But Venables is going into year 4. Like, a 7-win season, I don't think buys him any time. So he's like
Oklahoma.
Yeah, he's got to really improve to 8-9 wins at a minimum.
If they win 6 or less, I think the narrative is he can't win in the SEC. Because he'll be well below 500 after 2 years in the conference.
He'll just go back to Clemson and
Well,
dominate.
they already got an open for DC. They brought Tom Allen in a couple weeks ago.
They'll say, Tom, we love you, but
he'll be an analyst for a couple years, and then get back. But yeah, I think Oklahoma could open up. Trying to think,
Auburn,
maybe.
Yeah. Auburn.
OU opens up. I got a name for you.
I got one too.
Yeah, that's a great hire, actually. Bring
him back.
I think it went so well the first time.
Yeah, exactly.
One for that job. I think Matt Campbell could be an Oklahoma guy.
Wow, that's a good one.
Legitimately, that would be an amazing hire.
What about Kleiman at Kansas State?
I think he would. He would do well at Arkansas.
Yeah,
could be.
I think the Arkansas one is going to be Rhett Lashley. He's an alumni there.
Yeah, he is alumni. That's right.
Ooh, SMU though could make a big pitch to keep him. You're going to have an easier path to the playoffs, and they have a lot of money down there.
Yeah. They're going to, make it a bidding war. They're not going to make it easy for Arkansas to just, pay him. Because
Kentucky with Summerall,
I cut someone off. Who did someone say for Arkansas? Sorry about that.
Kleiman. It was Kleiman.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kleiman. Or the other one is Leipold at Kansas. I think he could work at Arkansas for sure. Talking about, Arkansas, they brought Petrino back. They had Petrino for a long time there, had some of the high-flying offenses. I think he could fit at Arkansas.
Yeah, absolutely. I love both of those guys. Both of those seem like great fits.
Do you think if they won, Jeff Levy would go back to Oklahoma? It's an interesting one.
I don't know.
I'm sure he would.
He would. I don't know if Oklahoma would.
Yeah,
reciprocate.
I mean, he'd have to win a lot, but
a big year.
I think it's he might be one of those like they can't. He's too damaged of goods. Like Mississippi State is a tough job to take because of that. Like you're risking getting in coaching purgatory, taking that job because you just get into a rut, and now these big boosters can't justify spending money hiring you, and it's like you have to go backwards to go back forward in that situation. So I don't know.
I don't think this is too big of a deal either, but if you guys remember, I'm pretty sure this was at Oklahoma, if I'm remembering correctly. But he brought Art Briles on the field, who's
it was Oklahoma.
So there's just like I think people at Oklahoma were not happy about that. I still think they probably hold that against him just because there was no point in doing that, right? Like I know that he's Art is family to him, but to bring negative press like that, there was just no need for it.
Yeah, and if they give him the head coach keys. Hey, by the way, before I say this, breaking news: Canada and USA are fighting again. I know you guys are surprised by that.
The Minnesota in me is very upset at missing this game.
I think we're going to get to catch part of the third period, hopefully.
Yeah. If you see me glancing, I've got it going on.
Yeah.
I've got it on a screen down here too.
What is the current score?
It is 1-1.
Oh, 1-1? Okay. Yankees tied it up. I hadn't seen that before I came up here. That's good.
Yanks tied it up, and then they got tied up in a brouhaha, in a little scuffle. They were exchanging pleasantries.
Good. I figured it'd basically be an entire period of pleasantries after what we saw in the first game.
Yeah. The
political landscape.
Yeah, it's not the best. Not the best. But yeah, so this coaching landscape is going to be, I think it's going to get real interesting because you have Leipold and Kleiman who are sitting there. I think poised for big jobs. John Summerall, Rhett
You mentioned Fran Brown,
like he's like he could end up at a Florida. That would be a phenomenal hire for them if they move on from old Billy. I'm not so sure that Miami is 100% sold on Mario.
Yeah.
That was one I was going to bring up too. Yeah, I'm
so sure that they're enthused with how things like you have Cam Ward, and it was just like right there, and then they just got embarrassed by Georgia Tech.
Their defense just wasn't worth a damn.
They couldn't stop
all year.
They hired the Minnesota's D coordinator away, Heatherman. It was a good hire.
Okay.
Yeah, and we talked about that when the news broke a couple of weeks back, months maybe now, but when Beck transferred, when is he going to play, right? I mean, he's just had Tommy John surgery, so
he had the Brock Purdy, which is like the step below Tommy John, what doesn't knock you out quite as long. But Brock Purdy, he wasn't. It took him a year to be good again. Or at least to be full strength. I don't know.
Yeah. But just, he's going to miss spring ball, presumably some of fall camp. I don't know. That's an interesting one. I think, to keep an eye on because there's a lot riding on Carson Beck, and we don't know what he's going to look like.
$1 for a guy that you're not sure that's going to be ready to play.
Yeah.
That's pretty dumb.
And if he's out there, Emory is not a good backup. They will struggle if he's playing QB.
Yeah, no doubt. And so that's going to be an interesting thing there. With Mario Cristobal, look out for him. He might be back on the market. he might just go right back down to FIU.
Yeah.
That'll be with Vanderbilt, like they have to prove, like Clark Lee might be out. Like I don't know who gets in over there at Vanderbilt. Like that's a unique job. Like maybe Fran.
Let's just
Brown.
promote Jerry Kill if he's healthy.
Yeah, too bad he's
Yeah.
never healthy. That would be
Exactly. Yes.
That'd be well. He's already the head coach. Let's be honest about that. Jerry Kill is the head coach of Vanderbilt. He's just not titled. He's running that program. We all know it.
One in the ACC to think about too is Brent Pry at Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
Gone.
I think so too. He's hanging on by a thread. I was very hopeful for his tenure there when he got there, but it just has kind of been meh, and I don't see it getting much better.
No, I think he's got to have a special year, and I just don't see it. I don't see it happening. So I think he's gone.
And they still, I don't know that they've hired an O coordinator yet. As of a couple days ago, they had not. So they were really behind because they lost their O coordinator to be the O-line coach at Ohio State.
Yeah, I saw
know.
something that ended up being a prank where they hired Neil Brown.
They did interview him. That actually was legit. They hired Phil Montgomery, the old Tulsa head coach.
Oh, yeah.
Who was with Auburn a couple of years ago in Baylor.
Not a bad hire there. Not bad at all. But I don't think it'll be enough. I just don't think it'll be enough for them. And they got a very – like if they get their butts kicked by Vandy again, like it was a close game score-wise, but Vandy pushed them around up front.
Do they play again next year? I haven't looked at their schedule.
Yeah, they play week 2 next year.
Oh,
Vandy.
And Virginia Tech season opener, my Gamecocks.
Oh, there you go.
Is it really? Wow. Yeah, they might be 0-2.
That's in Atlanta. That's one of the Ben's kickoff. Yeah.
That's got to be wild for Beamer.
Yeah, it does. And then so Beamer gets Virginia Tech week 1. I don't know who they have week 2, and then they turn around and play Vandy week 3.
South Carolina State, they got their FCS game week 2. I know that.
Gotcha. I know Vandy's got Charleston Southern.
Okay.
So they just flip-flop their FCS game. Last year it was Alcorn State, which
Gamecocks, their conference. I know the opening, it was Vandy, Mizzou, Kentucky, LSU. That's the first month.
Yeah. Be an interesting road. I mean, 2025 is going to be very, very exciting.
Mizzou, speaking of the coaching stuff, one last thing. If a blue blood top level job opens up, I think Eli Drinkwitz could be a guy in the mix for one of them. He's a good coach. He is. He really is. He's I mean, there's a lot of people in a lot of circles that probably say that he's properly rated. But I just don't feel like he gets enough love. I don't either. No. I don't think he gets enough credit. Now, some people would probably disagree with me and say he does. I just don't think he does.
I'm interested to see what it looks like next year, right? We lose Luther Burden. We lose Theo Weiss. We don't have Brady Cook. The defense had a lot of issues last year, especially in a couple games where they get blown out. So it's going to be if he goes next year, wins 9 games next year, wins 10 games next year, I'm all in with you guys. Totally agree. And back-to-back 10-win seasons, 11 wins 2 years ago, 10 wins this year. I definitely like what he's doing. That's hard to do at Mizzou. And we saw that with Barry Odom. Like we saw that late in Gary Pinkel's time. So he definitely has Mizzou, humming right now. But I want to see him do it with a team that isn't as good, isn't as experienced as what he had coming back last year. Bringing in Ahmad Hardy at running back will help a lot. He was real good for a true freshman at ULM. Yeah, that's true. So we'll see. I mean, I do think he's a good coach. I'm not saying he's not a good coach. He's a good coach for sure. I'm not ready to say he's up there for a blue blood job just yet, especially just looking back at the schedule last year and thinking about, we talked about this on Biscuits and SEC Live last night, going through and we were doing our season grades, and we were talking about Mizzou, and there was a lot of good that came out of this year. They won a lot of close games, but those games where they got blown out, right? Like Texas A&M, they get blown out. It's like 41-10. And you got to remember that was Connor Weigman starting that game, who wasn't the starter, by the end of the year for the Aggies. So there was a couple things that just made me pause right there, for Eli Drinkwitz, even though, like I said, he's a good coach.
Yeah, he's just got to, I think 1 or 2 more seasons of consistency will help that. I think there's a lot of big names that are poised for those blue blood jobs right now. So I don't know where I don't know how he mixes in with those names like the Leopolds, the Klymans, the other names, whoever.
Summerall, John Summerall is one of those names.
Summerall, Fran Brown,
Who's the guy at Houston if he has a good year?
Willie Fritz.
Yeah, the old Tulane.
So speaking of, that's where Willie's pretty old though. I don't know that he'll move on.
He is.
He's old. He's like 63, 64, something like that. He's not. I don't think teams are hiring him because he's not Belichick. Like they'll hire a 74-year-old if it's Bill Belichick. How do we think he's going to do?
I have no idea. I'm fascinated to see it. I honestly have no prediction. I could see it crashing and burning terribly, and I could see it, working out and they win. But I do think working out, you have to be realistic. Like 8-9 wins, I think is a very, very good year for them.
Yeah.
In year one under him, but
yeah,
their schedule relative to that conference pretty weak too. I know they avoid Louisville, they avoid SMU and Pitt, but Clemson's like the only good team they play in conference play next year, basically.
That's pretty good for old Billy.
TCU North Carolina is his first game. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, that will be. See how he kind of adjusts to that whole thing.
We shouldn't sleep on Duke there either, though.
No.
Oh, Manny Diaz.
Yeah, Manny Diaz. He brought in Mensa, right, from Tulane.
Yeah.
So got a pretty decent quarterback. That's about all I know about Duke. But last year, what did they win? I think they won 8 games last year.
Yeah,
I think
9 counting the bowl game.
Yep.
9? Yeah, I mean,
who they beat in the bowl? I forgot who they beat.
Ole Miss. Oh no, they lost to Ole Miss. Who were we?
oh yeah, so yeah, they got smoked.
Yeah, they got rolled. Who am I thinking of? I'm getting confused with someone.
But it was a good season, regardless for Manny in Durham.
They were 9. They were 9-4 still, though. I'm looking at it now. They were 9-3 regular season, and that Ole Miss loss brought them to 4.
I was getting confused with Louisville, who beat Washington in the bowl game. That was it.
By the way, Duke lost in overtime to SMU. I had forgotten that. That was in week 7 or something.
That was that 6 turnover game or something by SMU, and Duke just couldn't do anything.
Who would have known that the 6 turnover game for SMU would have been a preview of what we saw at Penn State?
Yeah, that's right.
Duke last year, they were the college version of the Minnesota Vikings. They just won a bunch of 1-possession games, and that's kind of what did it for them.
Yeah.
By the way, Canada is absolutely cheesing this power play. Like they can't do anything on this power play.
We got the lead too.
Yeah. Good. And dude's out there playing with no stick. He broke his stick trying to block a shot, and he's out there blocking shots with his skates and stuff. It's pretty funny.
Love it.
In a power play too. Like they're short-handed. And he's out there like throwing his body around. This game is a whole lot of fun because Canada they don't know what to do with all of this. Like the Americans are better than them at hockey tonight, and the last 2 times they've played, and they just don't know. They just can't handle that.
I saw pregame. Micah Ruzioni was down there.
Yeah.
Dapping up the Team
That's
USA, cool. and so we can't lose, right? With Rizzo in attendance.
No, you can't. And it's you got PK Subban on the telecast.
His old Pred, right? He was in your neck of the woods, wasn't he, Corey?
Yeah, he was a long time Pred. It's tough to say he was a longtime Predator and be like, oh.
Are you
You're
a
like,
Predator
oh,
fan? Are you much of a
Whoa,
Predator
what are we
fan,
talking
Corey?
about?
Wait, hold on. Yes, because Atlanta lost their teams. I'm all Atlanta sports.
So-
And
So when I was coaching high school football in Minnesota, I coached Cole Smith, who plays for the Preds.
oh, okay, very cool.
Yeah.
Very
Wow, that's sweet.
Yeah, so when I moved here in 08, the Preds were like they were about to reach they were like 2 years away from their Stanley Cup final run where they lost in 6 to Pittsburgh, and they were just starting to get good. And so it was like, I mean, this city exploded with like Preds fever. And that's when they switched to the gold jerseys, which I love those.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then now they kind of suck again, but oh no, we suck again.
I love that stadium is right on Broadway. I think the arena is right there.
It
It's so
is.
cool.
It is right there in the freaking action, man. You step out, you're like 4 paces away from Rippy's Barbecue.
Yeah.
It's like a 4-level deal. They have like the rooftop. They have concerts on every level. I mean, it's freaking wild, man.
It was cool. I'd never been to Nashville, went there a couple years ago, and just was at the hotel right by Broadway. Ended up walking down Broadway, having no idea the layout of the geography, and just turned around and was like, "Oh, that's the arena. That's the Preds arena." I was like, "That's pretty cool." Awesome. I'm sure they did a great job. So putting it right there, it's a great spot to watch a game.
That was it. And when they moved in, I think what it was like 90. When was it? When was the Preds? 99? I don't know. I'll look that up. I'll ask Uncle Google on that one. But that was before Broadway really became Broadway.
Speaking of going back to coaches here, I'm just looking through UNC's schedule and having me thinking about it. A coach who was kind of on shaky ground going into last year was Dabo at Clemson. Now he's like working the port a little bit, had a pretty good year last year, getting to the playoffs when no one really expected it. What do you guys think about Clemson going into next year? Borderline playoff team, dark horse national title contender?
I think they're definitely a playoff team next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And 1998,
98 was
the Nashville Predators were established in the Western Conference.
Yeah,
I'm higher on Clemson than most. Like I think next year they're as a Gamecock alum, it pains me to say it, but I think they're going to be pretty good next year. Clemson, LSU, good season opener too.
Absolutely.
yeah, that's a. I mean, they have to win because Brian Kelly can't win his opening game, so that's a dub for Clemson.
It's in Clemson too.
Whoa,
That game.
Oh, gosh, it is.
Brian Kelly's gonna Death Valley in September. That's
another one that I think Kelly's on some shaky ground. I don't know. I mean, I think the bottom would really have to fall out for them to fire him, given the buyout. As an Aggie, we know that very well because it's the same AD that gave Jimbo his fully guaranteed deal. But I don't know. I don't think the locals are too thrilled with Brian Kelly so far.
Yeah, and that's like I brought it up on our squad show. We did our Locked On Squad show, and they were talking about overrated and underrated coaches, and I brought up Brian Kelly is overrated because every year it's like, oh, Brian Kelly, this Brian Kelly coordination, and he's had a really good career as far as like if you just look at the landscape of his career and the wins and like he rebuilt Notre Dame, but he always like kind of the smudge on it or the black eye or whatever, however you want to describe it, is when he leaves a place, it's usually coming back down before he leaves. Like he hits these like peaks and valleys, and the valleys, unfortunately for him, the valleys define his career and not the peaks as much.
And that's too bad because like a lot of people forget at LSU, he took over a terrible situation. They had like 35 guys on scholarship. We're playing a receiver at the bowl game, and that there was nothing there. He goes there, brings in Daniels. They win the division in year one. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But like it's just I don't know what it is about him. Like he's great. He's really good.
He's smug. He's unlikable.
He's
it
unlikable.
is.
I was going to say
Yeah.
it's his personality.
He's unlikable, and he'll lose some games that he shouldn't. And so you bring
Right.
it all together,
Yeah.
and it's just and all of a sudden you're just a loser.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I would be surprised if he's actually fired, but I just think that's something to keep an eye on. I mean, again, different situation, but they fired Ed O 2 years after a national title, and
Well, they knew where that one was going.
Yeah.
I mean, that was going
Fair
downhill
point.
fast.
yeah, Kelly's not messing around with the co-eds, I don't think. So.
Totally. Oh no, definitely not. Totally different. Totally different situation there. We had a joke, Mike, of who was in Sidney Thomas's DMs a few weeks back on that story. We said who would be the most hilarious, and Brian Kelly was one of those. Like, if you found out it was Brian Kelly, you'd be like, you would be on the floor laughing.
Yeah.
You'd be like, whoa, like what's going on here? But surprisingly, it was Lane Kiffin.
Right.
Yeah, of course, yeah, it had to be Lane.
Yeah,
If
nobody-
Ed O was-
It would have been him or Bielema, is my guess.
yeah,
Bielema.
Bielema. Yeah, we could have had a whole crew, like a lineup, like a police
Yep.
lineup, if we still had Bielema and Ed O and all Lane in the conference. But there was only one suspect here.
Yeah.
Absolutely. God almighty. So, quarterbacks, Mike, we talked about over and underrated quarterbacks. And, I think the SEC is very interesting because I don't know that you can say any of them are overrated because it's just a conglomeration of guys that are just like, okay. Like they have holes in their game. Like Lenore Sellers is a really good quarterback. He has a lot of holes in his game. He's among the top of the SEC right now. He has a lot of holes in his game still, but he's very raw.
Yeah.
We understand that. And he has a lot of room for development, and I get that. So I guess they're basing it on potential.
Yeah. And similar talk I had with someone a couple days ago. Like if he struggled last year, but potential-wise, Nico is one of the best in the country. He has all the tools. If he blows up, he's a guy that's going to skyrocket on draft boards just because he has the physical attributes to be that guy.
Yeah, but like the mental stuff, the seeing the
Yeah.
game, like I just don't think, Heupel's offense is simple,
It is.
and he still, I don't think he was comfortable in Heupel's offense. That's concerning to me.
Yeah.
If I had to pick one SEC QB going into next year that I would feel comfortable as my guy, Nussmeier might be the guy I would pick at this point.
I feel like that's kind of by default though,
Yeah.
because he's nothing like he's not elite. He's just solid and doesn't make a ton of mistakes.
Yeah.
But he's not going to win you. He's not going to win you a game by himself, like taking over a game. But he's also not going to. He's also not going to fumble.
We're like the other guys, Nico, Talon Green, Sellers. I'd be worried they would lose you games doing that stuff.
Yeah.
absolutely.
I'm also not as high on Pavia as some people are either. I feel like we got too much into the Vandy feel-good stuff last year. They lost to Georgia State, who won 2 games in the Sun Belt.
It's kind of gimmicky.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a lot to prove as well. I think in year 2 to prove that he wasn't just some gimmicky fluke. Like he's got a lot to prove, and I think he has a chance to. Canada just scored.
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, he's great for Vandy, right? But I do think, in terms of like a guy who you're going to look at the end of the year and say he's the best QB in the SEC, I just don't think he's got that.
He's probably the
capability.
most impactful. If you had like a separate category, he's probably the most impactful for the way he's impacted that roster, and really the kind of the way
there for that too.
like the way he's impacted the university too. Like the other sports have that Pavia mentality now. Like basketball has that Pavia mentality a little bit. Baseball starting to get it. Women like Caleb Blake's scored 55 against Auburn as a freshman. Like it's across. Like Vandy sports has like had this like uptick because and it started with Diego Pavia. So like as far as impact, he's probably the most impactful. But as far as like the best quarterback in the conference, I would say there's a lot more proven guys.
We need to see more of him, but it could end up being Lagway at Florida.
Could be.
I don't think he just didn't play enough, but he also, when he played, he didn't show a ton of holes. So perhaps with a full off season ahead of him, he'll be ready to take that jump.
And being fully healthy. He basically beat Ole Miss on one leg.
Yeah.
He's got to show that he can stay healthy
Yep.
throughout the course of a season. If he can show that, he has the rest of the tools. He's the guy. Like, he's the guy that's going to save Billy Napier. When he leaves, whenever that is, that's when Napier's going to go.
Yeah. And we haven't talked about Arch yet. Who knows? Being the guy, I don't know what's going to happen there.
I'm not sold necessarily, but I'm not sold that he's going to be bad. I'm not sold that he's going to be good. I don't know what he's going to be.
If there was a guy coaching him, he has the guy that I would want. I will say that. Sark is, I think he's a heck of a coach. I mean, he is. He is a heck of a coach.
Yeah, he is. He absolutely is. So who's going to win so there's two major quarterback competitions, Georgia and Alabama. Like, how do you see Puglisi versus Gunnar Stockton?
I think it's probably Gunnar.
Probably, yeah.
That's where I would lean, but I don't know a ton about Puglisi. I thought, they're in the midst of a playoff run, so you have to pump the kid up. But Kirby was very high in his praise of Stockton, so it seems like they obviously like the kid. But ultimately, Kirby is he's not going to go with a guy who, is less talented or doesn't give him as good a chance to win, no matter how much he respects a kid. So that'll be an interesting one to watch because I don't know, like Stockton showed some stuff for sure, but also
left a lot to be desired too.
Yeah, he's put in a tough spot, but he's not a true freshman, right? I mean, was this his third year on campus?
Yeah.
So it's like, tough spot. You've never been in the spotlight. You never really played, but the system wasn't new, and he definitely, he left a lot to be desired.
Was that Puglisi's first year on campus?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he's left the door wide open for Puglisi.
Certainly. Yeah.
I think Puglisi's talented enough to.
Is the view that Puglisi has the better arm and Stockton is the better dual threat, essentially?
Mm-hmm. It's just going to be a matter of what they want to do identity wise. It's going to kind of determine that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that'll be interesting too, because, Georgia didn't, despite having Etienne last year, they didn't really run the ball that effectively.
They didn't really do much of anything.
No.
Like Georgia didn't have. It was baffling. They didn't have an identity at all. Like you didn't.
How was a roster that talented so bad at receiver the last couple of years too?
Yeah, I don't get it. Like I really don't get it. Like that, all of a sudden, Brian McClendon leaves to go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Georgia can't catch a cold after that. If you rack up all the yards of drops, you would have had 1,000-yard receiver.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. In somewhat in defense of Gunnar Stockton is, anybody that watched that game against Notre Dame, how many freaking drops were there? I mean, he was putting balls on the money too, right? Like there were a lot of drops in that game that were absolutely not his fault. And the guts he showed against Texas and. So, and the other piece of that too is, okay, you are going to have a whole nother offseason for Puglisi to potentially pass him. But I think Stockton, with his experience and the fact that Kirby trusted him to put him in first, right, ahead of Puglisi in the spot in the SEC championship game, and then to start him again in the college football playoff, I think that speaks volumes. I would be surprised if Puglisi beats him out. Now, if Puglisi does beat him out,
Puglisi wasn't healthy much. He missed a lot of fall camp.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah,
I think with a hamstring injury or some sort of one of those nagging injuries that you just can't ever recover from.
I think it tells you a lot though. If Puglisi does beat him out, that kid is pretty daggum talented, and the rest of the SEC should be on notice.
Yeah,
be fun if he gets it out. Be fun to see Zachariah Branch there next year. He's a talented guy at receiver.
And then the guy we got from you,
Thomas.
Thomas.
Yeah.
I about said
Yeah.
Gallagher, but that's the lead singer of Oasis.
That was a good pickup for you guys.
Yeah.
A&M has basically no height at receiver at this point because Noah Thomas left, and I do think that
You guys are the New England Patriots of like 2005.
yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
We can only hope.
You guys trotting out Welker and Edelman as your receivers.
We certainly don't have Tom Brady, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But even like the guys they brought in, Concepcion and Hudson, they're sub 6 foot guys who will start.
Right.
Yes.
They're, big recruits, right? Like
Yeah.
lots of potential talent, ceiling, all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, looking at the roster, where's the height? I don't see the guy you're throwing the fade to. I don't see the guy taking the top off the defense in terms of
Nyblack might be that fade guy. You just flex him out.
Yeah.
that could be. That
Yeah.
could be.
Big
Yeah.
body, just I would say not even like a high ball fade to the back pylon. I'm talking like you get him inside leverage and just hit him right in the freaking chest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just let him body somebody like that. Or like a back shoulder or something like that, like a non-conventional fade, like a just a bullet throw right at his face.
Yeah.
Let
Right his face or high point or whatever.
Or
Mhm.
just give him, hey, you go opposite concept of a fade, and you just kind of you run your outside fade route like a seam.
Yeah.
You just kind of slide across inside leverage, and then I'm gonna hit you right in the lead number, and that guy's not gonna be able to do anything about it.
That's right.
That's the
Yeah.
kind of stuff they did with Gronk. They tell Gronk get inside of the defender, and we'll put it on your lead arm, and there's nothing anybody can do about it.
No.
I mean, Nyblack's not Gronk by any stretch of the imagination, but
doesn't seem like it. A
no,
couple schools now here.
yeah, he's Alabama to Texas A&M. I think next year he's going to go out to Arizona, and then I think he's going to take him next year. I think he's trying to go to the four corners of the country, so he's got a couple more stops to go.
A&M still has Theo too, the big Swede. So
Lead, yeah.
So and he showed it at times last year. He also dropped a couple critical balls at critical times, but he's starting to show the talent that they got him. Yeah, he was a 4-star coming out of high school or whatever the hell they do in Sweden. I don't know, but came to A&M.
They got the guy from Auburn too at tight end that transferred there.
That's right. Was it Fairweather? Rivaldo Fairweather?
No,
No, that would be a nice one though.
It wasn't
Riley was it. Yeah, Riley. That was the last name.
Michael Riley. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what you're telling me is A&M is going to go a lot of 13 personnel.
I think a lot. And
Probably.
Elko's teams have done that traditionally. And Colin Klein, when he was at K-State, did it all the time.
Yeah.
It might be more of an offense that they would like to run, right? Versus last year, what they were.
Heavy dose of 12 and 13. You got Marcel Reed. You're not going to really be slinging around the yard anyway.
Mm-mm.
Might be perfect.
Plus,
Yeah.
you're going to have Le'Veon Moss back, and you're going to have
Ruben Owens.
In a full off season to dive straight into it.
Aggies winning the national title next year.
Go to betonline.ag and put that bet
Yeah.
down.
We are the kings of preseason hype.
Get that
That is fair. Yeah.
get that preseason future in there.
Yeah.
Dude, I just looked up at the clock, and because Jake's not here or Steve's not here, like there's nobody here to give me the 2 minutes.
2 minutes, Corey.
2 minutes. So yes, because we got this message.
Mhm.
So
Should we spend our last 2 minutes on Alabama's quarterback?
Keelan Russell.
offseason?
Sure.
Keelan Russell. Yeah.
You
I
it's
think it might
Keelan?
be Austin Mack.
Oh,
Okay.
That's a bold
he
call.
was an elite recruit. He was going to go to Washington. Now he went there. They got Ryan Grubb as the O coordinator, get the band back together. He
he
certainly
does
looks
seem
the
like a
part.
forgotten man there.
Yeah.
Nobody's talking about him, right? He's
Nope.
the guy in the background, and I'm with you. He was a 4-star
Yeah.
recruit. He was a big recruit.
And if those two guys both liked him enough to bring him with them, that tells me something.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That is a very good point. I think Kalen DeBoer is also everyone's kind of like after a 9-3 season somehow.
Yeah.
Everybody's kind of like first season, new situation. You get a square peg trying to put it into a round hole with Jalen Milroe, and everyone judges you. And now he's gone. You get your own quarterback. Now this is the Kalen DeBoer we're going to see. Is he going to be the Kalen DeBoer we all know, or is he going to be the, oh, that job is just too big for you, that you bit off more than you can chew, Kalen DeBoer? I think it's going to be the former. I think once he gets his guy, we're going to see just kind of how good he is.
Yeah, I would agree.
I don't think you win at two places without knowing what you're doing. He did good at Fresno, went to the title with Washington recently.
He just needs to find his next Michael Penix Jr., you know?
Yeah.
His overall record as a head coach is absolutely ridiculous. I think that guy's going to be just fine.
Yeah.
That was a home run hire. I don't think we can judge him off just 1 year. And by the way, he won 9 games in year one. Like it's not
year one with a quarterback that clearly didn't fit.
Yeah, exactly. So I think he's going to be just fine.
Yeah. And it says a lot about Ty Simpson too. Like they just would not put him in.
I honestly, he's one of those guys. I'm a little surprised he didn't transfer. Like I could have seen him at like a Pittsburgh, you know, or
transfer in the spring.
What's funny because how well Eli Holstein did at Pitt after transferring from Bama.
Yeah, exactly.
That was So
like is Simpson going to go to like a Wake Forest or somewhere lower in the P4 where he'll still start? Yeah,
sure, he should
just get good film out there and see if he can't hit lightning in a bottle in the NFL. So
anyway, quarterback, Boston College, follow Lonergan.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Longer.
I'll be curious how that with him and Loftus from FIU. That spring battle's an interesting one too.
Yeah.
Definitely is.
Well, Mike, we're gonna have you back on next week. We got to finish this discussion.
Okay.
And we're gonna get out of here. SEC After Dark. There's the second period in this hockey game is winding down, so I want to get you guys out for third period action. It's a tie match. It's a tie game with U.S. and Canada. I think there's going to be one more brawl to settle it all, but we are SEC After Dark, Biscuits and SEC. Check them out every Wednesday night still, right? You guys are still on Wednesdays. So
Yep.
check them out.
Changed the time a little bit. We went to 7 Eastern, 6 Central. So just moved it 30 minutes up.
Very good. Thanks for that note. Mike Huseman, we're at the drawing board phase, but look for more of Mike Huseman on this channel. And he'll be in your living rooms sooner rather than later. And then for me, Locked On Vandy, and Jake, I think it's all but official. Bama After Dark, it's all but official. And Dogs After Dark is going from the back of my mind. It's inching closer to the forefront. So I'm thinking of making that move and just bringing that show right onto this network and growing it here. So stay tuned for that. And of course, Off the Rails and SEC After Dark as well. So all these great shows. Steve Willis, the most watched Ole Miss podcast ever. So with that, see you guys later. See you back here next week. Go Dogs, anchor down. Peace.
Dig 'em.
Gamecocks, Spurs up.
Woo.
Yeah.